Welcome to Enchanted Astrology with Ariel Smith. This is the Quantum Zodiac series, and today we are talking about Jupiter. And Jupiter specifically as the law of gravity. Now, this gravity does not function within Newtonian space-time. This gravity functions in the realm of the quantum, and my analogy for explaining this today is gravity from this framework functions like grammar. Now, A Course in Miracles teaches us that the body's sole purpose is for communication. And until the Quantum Zodiac series came to me, I didn't really truly understand exactly what that meant. But after this series revealed itself to me and this quantum understanding of the zodiac, I feel much more able to understand what exactly that means. So if we take Neptune, where we began our journey, as the infinite unitary field where everything exists simultaneously, it's this unitary field of symbols, of possibilities, of experiences. Neptune would be like the alphabet. So the alphabet is always there. It contains every possible letter and every possible combination that you can make in order to form words, in order to form sentences, and no matter how many words you write and how many books you write, you cannot exhaust the alphabet, right? It is always there. It will always be there. All of the letters and possible combinations of exists all at the same time within the alphabet. And this is the quantum field. And from there, we met Saturn, which is the act of selecting certain letters. And now we come across Jupiter. And Jupiter is the force that orders these in a meaningful way in order to have a meaningful experience, because you don't extract any meaning from the alphabet itself. The alphabet doesn't convey meaning in itself. It's the act of ordering the letters and the characters in a specific order through the agreed upon grammar that enables us to create and communicate meaning. So the meaning doesn't come from the letters themselves. It comes from how the letters are ordered, the patterns that they follow in the grammar. So, and Jupiter is that principle that makes that ordering possible. It's the laws of grammar that we follow in order to have an agreed upon meaning and understanding. So Neptune is the alphabet itself. It's raw field of symbols, potentials, images, feelings, archetypes. It's this alphabet that is unlimited. It never runs out. It never depletes. No matter how many words you write, the letters will always be there to choose from. And just because you chose the letter A to create a word does not mean that somebody else can't also choose the letter A to create a word, create their own word. So this is abundance because it's never exhausted. Just because somebody is choosing an experience in no way depletes that experience for somebody else. We all have the alphabet to choose from at all times. And then Saturn is choosing those letters And Jupiter is the grammar of how things are ordered that allows our words and our sentences to mean something to others, right? So Jupiter is that force that ensures that meaning can expand outward to others and be communicated outward to others. So in Newtonian physics, we typically think of gravity as acting across space-time, right? Because in Newtonian physics, space-time is fundamental, and we see gravity as this force that acts across time and space and pulls things together. But in the quantum understanding, where space-time is not at all fundamental, it's more of an emergent illusion from something much deeper. Gravity is not pulling things together. It is it's ordering things in a way that prevents these incoherent combinations. So grammar is what prevents sentences from becoming unreadable and ensures that there's a meaning that stays intact. And when you think about the unlimited potentials that we can choose from in our experiences, if there was no rhyme or reason or specific grammar that we followed in our experiences, they would likely be extremely unmeaningful, very chaotic, and wouldn't make much sense at all. So without that grammar, you just get a bunch of noise. So Jupiter's function is to ensure that meaning remains universally consistent as we tap into the unlimited potential of possibilities to choose our experiences from. And that's why Jupiter governs things like law and belief, philosophy, faith, worldviews. It's governing these systems that are creating meaning globally on a large scale. It also orders things in a way where like remains with like. Because, for example, if you were trying to create a sentence and you started pulling words in from 3 different languages all together in the same sentence, it wouldn't convey meaning. It would still be scrambled. But as Jupiter maintains this consistency and this order, where all of one language's characters stay together and all of another language's characters stay together, you get this clean meaning that can be communicated. So in this framework, gravity isn't an attractive force. It is working to satisfy constraints. Now, if we take a couple examples of what these constraints do and how they operate, we can look at a sentence like, she eats apples. The words appear in a certain order so that we can understand and gain meaning from what is being communicated. If we violate those constraints and we say, eats she apples, the meaning starts to get lost, right? Because it's not satisfying the constraints. If we take a sentence like, John said that he was tired, that's very clear in its meaning. We understand John is talking about himself, that he's tired. If we reorder that and say, he said that John was tired, it's now introducing confusion, because who said, and if John said that about himself, the sentence doesn't make a lot of sense. So these constraints matter. The order matters. The grammar matters very much in our ability to communicate meaning and our ability to extract meaning. So if you've ever had someone say a very long, complex sentence to you, it can take you a moment to go back through that sentence in your mind and what we call parse it out. So you separate it into parses, into segments, in order to try and process and metabolize the meaning of the sentence. So Jupiterian distance and the distance of gravity is not talking about space and time. It's in this context talking about this parsing distance, right? The distance and the order of the segments in order for us to generate and extract meaning. Now, to understand gravity, we also have to understand mass. And in this framework, mass is simply how many external parses your actions must remain consistent with. Now, if we go back to the example of the sentence, just to understand what a high amount of parsing means, if we take a sentence like, the dog that the neighbor who moved in last summer adopted after the shelter closed sleeps on the couch every afternoon. This would be an example of a sentence that has a high amount of parsing because you need to hold the main context that the dog sleeps on the couch every afternoon in your mind as you process or parse out the rest of the sentence. That, well, this dog belongs to the neighbor who moved in last summer, and this neighbor adopted this dog after the shelter closed. So this would be a high amount of parsing just in one single sentence. But we can also look at parsing in this external way of how many external parses your actions or your meaning must remain consistent with. So a person or an institution or any system has high mass if many people must align with its grammar, if its alphabet becomes a reference standard, many people are referencing it, or others curve toward it in order to preserve and extract a shared meaning. So that's Jupiterian mass, that's Jupiterian abundance, and that is through the law of entanglement. Now, as we look at Sagittarius as being ruled by Jupiter, it is that external expression. It is that public or shared meaning. And in Sagittarius, your words must be translatable. They need to be shared across a vast external network, and that needs to be defensible because so many people are entangled in this shared meaning. It needs to be understandable to many different parties, many different observers. So in Sagittarius, your grammar is entangled with large-scale understanding and grammar like institutions, ideologies, communities, any type of like moral or collective framework or narrative. These systems have high mass because they have a high amount of external parses. They have a high amount of entanglements in them. So when you speak a sentence in Jupiter or in Sagittarius form of Jupiter, it must resolve across many grammars simultaneously. And this is where we see Sagittarius governing things like law and philosophy, claims of truth, belief systems, right? Worldviews. So there's not really room for being ambiguous there because it relies on this shared understanding in order for many people to extract meaning from it. But there's also a limit to this. So as we grow in constraint density, and let's take an example of a sentence that would just become highly, highly too constrained. So that would be like the meaning of the reference to the implication of the context of the relation of the and so on. This sentence, there's no verb that ever comes about. It cannot be resolved. It cannot be parsed. It cannot be understood. Eventually, everything just starts collapsing in on itself. So the meaning becomes very, very abstract. There is no meaning that can come out of this sentence. There's no meaning that can be expressed. And this is a black hole moment because there are too many unresolved dependencies now. No verb can arise, no sentence can resolve, meaning collapses inward. This is now the point of the bureaucracy, of dogma, which we know as Sagittarian expressions, and this is where the star has expanded beyond the ability to be stabilized, and it starts to collapse. So in this framework, a black hole is not where gravity is the strongest. It is where grammar becomes so restrictive that no new meaning can escape. So that is the event horizon of a black hole. And at that moment, you can no longer use the external form anymore. Its meaning has been exhausted. No more meaning can escape it. No more meaning can come from it. And the only resolution here is to erase the sentence and start again. And this reverting internally, this dissolving of the sentence, you're erasing the sentence, dissolving the form. This is Jupiter expression in Pisces. Now, Pisces is that structure dissolving back into the field. But when you erase a sentence, you don't lose your knowledge of the alphabet and you don't lose your knowledge of grammar. That still remains, and you still get this essence of what was trying to be conveyed, the intention that was trying to be formed. So when a system collapses under too much constraint, that meaning underneath doesn't disappear. It just becomes unexportable. But the essence and the memory of the alphabet, the knowledge of the alphabet and of grammar itself does not disappear. That remains. And this is Hawking radiation that comes out of the event horizon of a black hole, because it's not complete and total information loss. It's information remaining in this scrambled indirect form, and that's Pisces. And in this realm, you are not relying on anything external because you can't. External is now no longer possible from that system. So it's a complete internal orientation, and it is your personal and private relationship with God, your personal and private knowledge of the alphabet, and dissolving the external meaning structures in order to orient to a new meaning and create a new meaning from that. And this is not required to be validated. It's not required that anybody understand it externally. It is meaning that can only resolve internally. And this is where we get the Pisces associations with mysticism and dreams and retreat and surrender. And that is Pisces performing this constraint reset. And this often comes through things like art, music, dance, prayer, silence. It's not externally validated. It's not required to explain itself. It's not required to resolve with anyone else's grammar or meaning. So Pisces expressions are private. They don't need an audience, and they don't translate cleanly externally. They just carry this intangible essence of meaning that doesn't require an explanation. So this is Pisces' spiritual function, where if you erase a sentence, you don't erase your knowledge of the alphabet. So Pisces is our internal relationship to meaning itself. And that is not mediated by any institution, law, or mass consensus. This is Pisces' connection to God. It is meaning without external grammar. And it's an internal knowing without requiring proof. And this is also where the 12th house of Pisces is about isolation and retreat and endings, disillusion, because it's describing that process where these external systems become so dense, so entangled, so bureaucratic that they collapse, and Pisces now dissolves that and lives inside of this black hole in order to preserve its own internal meaning, and hold that alphabet intact so a new grammar can now form. So Jupiter is gravity, gravity is grammar, and grammar exists to make meaning possible. And Sagittarius builds meaning that must hold across many minds, but there is a limit to that expansion. And once that limit is reached, Pisces dissolves that meaning back into its essence. Pisces ensures that the meaning survives. Now, as always, I am not making any claims here. My intention is to offer a perspective that can help as we shift our understanding from a fundamentalist Newtonian view to a quantum one. So we are in a process of orienting to a quantum perspective. And if you would like to orient to this view within the body as well, I offer yin yoga classes on my website, so you can pair this episode with a Jupiter yin yoga class. And if you would like to understand how this interprets within your own chart, you can also book a consultation with me through my website, and this is all at enchantedAstrology.ca. So thank you so deeply for joining me here today. I will be back soon with the next episode in this series as we travel to Mars.